20s. This is the one fight that if you're going to watch one fight this year, you watch this fight. I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner. Either girl could come out on top, but you can't pick against Valentina Shevchenko because you've seen what happens when you bet against her.
And happy Friday, fight fans, and welcome to Inside the Fence, the official UFC podcast of No Game Schedule. We are coming off of one of the most underwhelming title fights in the history of the UFC. Gane versus Aspinall ends in a first-round eye poke, no contest. Aspinall maintains the belt. And now we are just where we are today. Have I been heavily drinking since that moment? The answer is, in fact, yes. However, though, the UFC gods up there in the sky, Uncle Dana, have blessed us with maybe one of the greatest cards that has ever been assembled in the history of the sports. And, of course, I'm talking about UFC 322. We are traveling to New York on the greatest stage in the history of sports, Madison Square Garden, for two title fights. Zhang Weili looking to dethrone Valentina Shevchenko, and Islam Makhachev looking to take away the welterweight belt from Jack Della Maddalena. My name is John Mastay, joined alongside my cornerman and co-host, Drew the Rooster Johnson. Drew, this is going to be a card, buddy. You and I have been very excited to record this episode for a while. I mean, maybe for over a month, which you and I, realistically, we do about a week work of prep for this episode, but you and I have been talking about this card for a while.
Yeah, but hold on a second, John. All right, I call. All right, I have 2-7 offsuit. Can't gamble on the UFC, I guess.
Every single episode, I'm going to let you in on some behind the scenes here, folks. Every single episode, Drew goes, "Hey, John, hey. No, you say this, and it isn't funny."
And I thought it was funny.
The video, they're now watching MMA Guru, or Mighty Mouse, or like, I don't know, they're like whatever the kids are watching these days. But let's get right into it. Quick change, if you don't know already, Bo Nickel was originally supposed to be fighting on the main card against Ferreira, but that fight has been replaced by a lightweight bout between the number 13 BSD, Bonal Saint Denis, and the number 9 Benal Dariush, and that's where we will begin our analysis. Drew, take it away.
I apologize for my bad joke. I was trying to make a play on the whole gambling investigation, and I thought someone would pick up on it.
First of all, we're going to talk about it. Hint towards the final round. So you blew it. You blew your coverage. Go on.
I knew. That's why I kind of thought we were going to go in that way. Anyways, could you get a larger thing of tea over there,
bro? You ever see the bear? They drink out of these.
Okay, well that's funny. But anyways, let's jump right into it.
And it ain't tea, my dog. It ain't tea.
Oh, nice lemonade. Beneil Dariush is going to knock out Benoit Saint Denis. Okay, we're not beating around the bush. We're not screwing around. Benoit Saint Denis has the most glass chin I have ever seen in the UFC. He almost got knocked up by Kyle Prepolek. And I know most of you are going, well, who the hell's Kyle Prepolek? Exactly. I think Benoit Saint Denis has an incredible ground game, but there's a reason why Beneil Dariush is still ranked at number 9 in his older fighting age. He has put down guys like Renato Moicano riding that big hype train. He's gone toe to toe with some of the greats in the sport. I mean, he got knocked up by Oliveira, but it's Oliveira. Anyways, I think that Beneil Dariush has such a great skill set to be able to go with a guy like Benoit Saint Denis. I think he's be able to grapple with him. I think he can definitely outstrike him. And Beneil Dariush still has some of the incredible power at 155. I think Beneil Dariush is going to knock out Benoit Saint Denis, and that's the end of story. Underdog parlay buster to start the main card.
Wow, there's just a heads up. This is going to be this might be an argumentative episode because I'm now realizing me and Drew are picking completely different sides for a majority of this card. I'm taking BSD on this fight here. You highlighted already. BSD's got a sensational ground game. I don't think Dariush has a good one by any stretch of the imagination. We talked about this the last time Dariush fought. We kind of had a similar conversation about what his goals were. I'm trying to think back.
I think the last time we talked about him was Renato Moicano, and that would have been at UFC 317. As I know he's fought since then.
Easy money.
Yeah.
Easy money.
Yeah.
And you look at his record. You look at some of the guys he's taken down. It's like, first of all, loses to Oliveira in 23. No one's beating Oliveira in 23. It's not happening, right? But you look at some of the people he's gone up against. He barely beat Gamrot. He barely beat Tony Ferguson, who at that point in his Tony Ferguson's career was just a shell of his former self. And so like he's barely getting through these fights. And I do agree with you. BSD is susceptible to good striking, and Dariush has good striking. But I think BSD is more seasoned of a pro and better of a fighter than what Dariush has faced to know that he can't make it a boxing match, and so he's going to take him to the ground. I can see it being stand up for maybe 60% of the fight. We'll say 2 rounds, maybe the first, maybe the end of the third, but I think that second round is where BSD is going to live, and I'm going to give it to BSD by submission.
I like that take. I think that's a very, very plausible event. I think this is going to be an episode where me and you get to talk in depth about all these fights and have just an absolute amazing in-depth conversation. Like I said, yeah.
This is why this card is so good, because there is a lot of fights on this main card. Honestly, all of them, except for one. I think there's one fight that's very obvious, but all of these fights are coin flips. And if you don't think that, you don't know fighting, because a lot of these fights are really close. They did a great job on these matchups. I'm very excited for it. But I'm taking BSD. Drew goes with Benal Dariush. Let's move up to a welterweight bout. Me and Drew are very excited for this one, because Carlos Prates is fighting, which that means it's officially cigarette season as he takes on the number 4 ranked Leon Edwards. Right now, odds have Prates up at a minus 175, subject to change, obviously, and Leon Edwards a plus 145. Drew, I'll let you go first.
I'm just going to say, I'm going with my guy. Give me the Nightmare by knockout. However, I don't think this is as far of as big of a slam dunk as people are making it out to be. This might be a hot take, but I think Leon Edwards is one of the most technical strikers in the UFC. And let me break that down. Leon has not looked good in his last 2 fights. He got ragdolled by Bilal and looked like he didn't want to fight, and he got absolutely mauled by Sean Brady, which I had every round a 10-8. One was a 10-7 in my book going into the 4th. Anyways, Leon is known to not do well with grapplers. However, that is what Carlos Prates does not want to do. This is going to be a stand and bang war, but I think Carlos Prates has just enough of the right tools to be able to take down a guy like Leon Edwards and maybe secure a title shot. However, the fight after it with that, nevertheless, I digress. I think that Carlos Prates is funky and unorthodox, and I think that's going to cause a problem for Leon Edwards because of how technical Leon is. Leon is a guy that wants to set up a strike here. When this guy moves here, I'm looking to do this. When he goes to counter, I'm looking to do this. Leon is very good at counterpunching and counter striking, which is how he beat Usman to get that belt. Snap the Usman's winning streak, yada yada yada, end of story. But with the way how Carlos Prates is unorthodox with his style, I think that Leon is not going to be able to think as far ahead as he normally will. I don't think he's going to be able to trap Carlos Prates because of all the tools in his toolbox. I think that Carlos Prates is going to be able to find the chin of Leon and put him down. Give me Carlos Prates, the Nightmare, by knockout.
I want to make something very clear. Prates is one of the... I mean, he's fun to watch. He's a fighter who is a lot of fun to watch. I put him and like Kevin Holland on the same kind of like pedestal of like, it's not going to be a title fight, but it'll be interesting to watch, right? That 4th fight in of the main card, maybe a 3, right? And that's where this is right now. So Prates is fun to watch, and make no mistake, I'm cheering for Prates to win this fight. I like Prates. Going against you again here, I'm going to take Leon Edwards. Go look up, if you have the time today, if you're enjoying your Friday, maybe it's you're off of work, maybe you're working, doing whatever, maybe you're watching this Saturday morning. Go look up what Chael Sonnen said about Leon Edwards, because it's insanely accurate. Chael says it best. He says Leon Edwards is one of the best fighters in the UFC currently. He just doesn't know that, right? You look at some of the fights Edwards has had, and it's been sensational performances, right? And then you look at some other fights, and it's like, is this guy throwing, right? Is this guy in part of this gambling situation? Because there's no way those are the two same guys. And I think it's a confidence. I think Chael said the same thing, but I've thought this before. It's like, I think it's a confidence issue with Edwards. I don't know if he's in his own head. I don't know what his coaching staff is telling him pre-fights, during fights. I don't know what it is, but watch Leon Edwards is it's a roller coaster. It's up, down, and right now he's on the down, which means he's eventually going to have to come back up. Cheering for Prates, want Prates to win, but I think Leon Edwards finds the right gear in his tool in his motor for this fight.
I agree. I feel like if the Leon that fought Colby Covington, the Leon that fought Bilal,
Usman,
or the Leon that fought Sean Brady, if one of those 3 Leon shows up, he is not winning this fight. However, if he pulls it out of his bag like Usman did against Buckley, he has a solid chance to stand and bang and win with Carlos Prates, because you know that Carlos Prates' ground game isn't that great. We saw what Ian Gary did to him. And I think that Leon has enough grappling to make it interesting on the ground, but Leon has to find it in his bag. And I think with a guy that's so unorthodox and, shifty like Carlos Prates is, I feel like it's going to be very hard for Leon to find, and that's why I'm picking against him. Don't get me wrong, I think this fight could go absolutely either way, but I like I said, I just don't think that Leon's going to find it in his bag.
Also, let's be honest. I want to watch Prates win so we can see a cool like post game interview where he's smoking a cigarette and just like looks fucking sick, dude. And then TikTok and then the Instagram reel editors can just feed off of that for the next 6 months. Let's move up one more time to another welterweight bout. This is a welterweight heavy card. 3 out of 5 main card fights are welterweight battles. So this is actually a really important card for the welterweight division, because you're going to see a lot of guys, depending on how the final fight goes, you're going to see a lot of guys a lot of positioning is going to be changed, right? I mean, you got the number 4 contender fighting, the number 2 contender fighting. You have JDM fighting. Islam, he just moved to this weight class and automatically getting a title shot, right? So there's a very good possibility that the next welterweight championship match features someone on this card.
Yes, it's going to be the winner of this fight right here is going to get the next title crack.
And it's going to be the winner of this fight. The number 8 contending Michael Morales versus the number 2 contending Sean Brady. Drew, I think you and I agree on this one. I'll let you take it away.
I agree. I think let's talk a little about Michael Morales. 18-0, undefeated. I think he's one of the only active fighters from Ecuador. Dude has knockout power at welterweight like we have not seen in a long time. I can't recall a guy at welterweight that has the same level of power as Michael Morales. It's been a minute. I think he has more power than JDM, more power than Usman. Anyways. However, we have not seen him tested with as good of a mixed martial artist as Sean Brady. Everybody saw what Sean Brady did to Leon in his own backyard, and there's no thinking about this. We're taking Sean Brady, most likely by submission in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think that when you put a really good striker against a really good grappler, 9 times out of 10, the really strong grappler is going to come out on top. And Sean Brady's no slouch in the stand-up and bang game. With the guys he trains with at Marquez MMA, like Joe Pfeiffer and Patrick Sabatini and Jeremiah Wells, that whole camp that John Marquez has going on is unbelievable. And I feel like Sean Brady is prepared to take this fight to Michael Morales and put him on his ass and win this fight. There's no up for debate, no nothing. Sean Brady will walk out with his hand raised and get a crack at that welterweight gold.
I was mistaken. Drew are not on the same page with this fight here. Everything you said is true. This is a coin toss match for me. I know Brady's favored -135 right now in his favor. Morales +114. It's close. I think it should be closer. Brady has not faced someone with the size of Morales, and if anyone, you look at the people he's faced who have been a little bit taller than he has struggled. Now he's got a great record under his belt, but he struggles to get inside. When he does, he's sensational, but he always struggles to get there. I'm thinking here. I mean, I originally took Morales in my original assessment of this fight. The way the details went, I mean, Morales is undefeated for a reason. You look at, if you compare the two, who they've faced, it's not great, right? Brady obviously has a significantly better resume going up against Bilal. Is his only loss, correct?
Yeah, that seemed like a fluke. Sean Brady did not seem like himself, and Bilal just took it to him and landed one shot, and that was it. And I feel like people are going to be like, oh, I'm taking Morales because Brady got knocked up by Bilal. Okay, but I don't think Morales would have been able to.
It was the welterweight champion, I believe, at the time. So it's like I don't really know.
No, he was not. It was a few fights before. Yes,
sure.
But
so you're still talking about the welterweight champion.
Yeah, someone that held welterweight gold, and Sean Brady beat the brakes off of Leon, who was 2 fights removed, or was 1 fight removed from being a champ. That was his fight after he lost the belt, and Brady just absolutely took it to him. Do I feel like Michael Morales, when able to put on that performance against Edwards? I really don't think so. But you can't come. That's like comparing apples to oranges. However, I feel like the way that with the tools that Sean Brady has, on paper he should not lose this fight. Sure, Morales is a dangerous up and coming contender, but who's Michael Morales really beaten? Sure, he knocked out Gilbert Burns, but I could count on two hands the number of guys that have done that. But just Morales' size will be a problem for Sean Brady, and I am not underestimating that. But like I said, Sean Brady has that number 2 next to his name for a reason.
Yeah, he's an absolute bulldog. But like I completely agree with everything you said, and at the end of the day, I think you are correct. I am going to go with Morales. We get fights like this every once in a while, right? You get guys who are relatively unknown for their division, right? Morales sitting around that 8 spot, hasn't fought too many people, right? And has worked his way slowly up. And Brady is the exact opposite. I mean, he's got a surefire resume on his hands. You look at the fights he has had, you look at the fight he's lost, and you can still say, I mean, it was a good fight. But you get these stories. I mean, I always point at Diego Lopez. You get these stories where it's a guy who is just completely with his back against the wall, metaphorically with his back against the wall, and then he just comes out and does something. And I think that's what I'm seeing here with Morales. The striking, I think, is going to be a problem for Brady. I'll say this: it's either I'll just put it this way: it's either going to be a Morales knockout or TKO, or it's going to be Brady going the distance or
or a late round sub.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about just you look at the average fight time between these two guys, and it's like an entire round extra for Brady because he just works guys and he gets into it, right? But if Morales can just break that and attack him early, and he can, and Brady can't defend it, I think that's where it's at. But I will go with Morales, but I would not be surprised if Brady won.
Absolutely, I think that's a great take.
For a reason.
Absolutely.
Let's get into it now. The championship bouts. We'll start with the women's flyweight title bout. Now, Drew, one more time. We've talked about this the last 2 times on this show, I believe. Tell us one more time what Zhang Weili had to do to get this position on her belt vacation.
She said, screw it. I want to go up and fight Val. It's a super fight that we're willing to make. And she said, I'm getting rid of my belt. I want to fight Val. And Dana said, vacate the belt. She said, okay. And that's why Mackenzie Dern's the world champion. I don't think she deserves it. But anyways, we're not here to talk shit about Mackenzie Dern. We're here to talk about this fight.
Was that a boring fight? Yes, it was. Absolutely. Moving on. The women's flyweight title bout between the unranked, moving up to a weight class, Zhang Weili, the greatest Chinese fighter that has ever existed in the UFC, versus the greatest Kyrgyzstan fighter of all time, Valentina Shevchenko, the champion. More rubies on her belt than anyone else in the history of the UFC. Me and Drew are finally on the same page with who we think is winning this fight.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, we are.
I don't know about that. But anyways, yeah.
I'm taking Val.
Okay. I don't know if we're on the same page or not.
Are you switching?
I think so, John. I mean, we're talking about
my God.
Hold on. We're talking about the greatest strawweight to ever put on gloves. And even better than she pieced up Prime Joanna, barely lost to Rose. Anyways, she's got a resume under her belt. And I think that Zhang Weili has all the tools to pull this out and come home with a win. But she's facing Valentina. So give me Valentina Shevchenko to break all the people's hearts that are betting on the dog. Everybody that's betting on Weili, go change your bet. We're taking Valentina. There's a reason why she's the greatest flyweight of all time, and there's a reason why only one woman's ever been able to get belts in 2 weight classes, and it's because of girls like this that hold the belt and don't give it up. So give me Valentina Shevchenko.
What was the point of that?
I want to do the Pat McAfee because I got robbed by Pat McAfee in the Manon and Valentina fight because Adobe decided to, get hacked because they're a bunch of
I appreciate that.
wusses. But anyways.
Listen, you spoke to me last week, I think, or last episode. You talked about, I think your question to me was, what has to happen in order for women's MMA to be at the level that men's is. And I said a couple answers. I said, listen, we need to add more weight classes. All right, just have more talent, right? It's easier to catch fish when you cast a wider net.
Absolutely, I agree.
Think of it that way, right? But I said, listen, we need we need to have some people. We need to have some great fighters go up against great fighters, and we need to have great fights. We need to have someone with insane power, with just style, with finesse, who makes it look good. And both of these women do those things.
Absolutely.
So like you said, this is the absolute definition of a super fight. And so if you want to, so once again, you want to ask me, or you'll go back, John, what needs to happen to increase women's MMA? You need to watch Zhang Weili and Valentina Shevchenko this Saturday, because this is going to be one hell of a fight.
Anna Nunes. This is as close of a super fight as you will ever see. Both these girls seem like their prime is never going to end. They're in the midst of their prime, in the midst of their title reigns, and they're going to fight. It doesn't get much better than this. This will be fight of the year, fight of the 2020s. This is the one fight that if you're going to watch one fight this year, you watch this fight. I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner. Either girl could come out on top, but you can't pick against Valentina Shevchenko, because you've seen what happens when you bet against her.
You know, the last there's women's fights in UFC history that you think really fondly about, and just how powerful they were. Like
Weili and Joanna 1 is arguably one of the greatest UFC fights ever.
That was very good. I always go to Holly Holmes versus Ronda Rousey. I think that was a for the shockwave that had on women's fighting is kind of really still felt to this day. I mean, you think about what Shevchenko and who she had to go up against, in the aftermath of that fight. This is another one. We do this to ourselves all the time. We hype up these fights. We get ready for just an absolute brawl, and then nothing happens. Or we expect nothing to happen, and then you get, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev 2, and it's one of the greatest, performances by a fighter ever in UFC history. We have like kind of a curse of just like, oh, we prepare ourselves for something that's going to happen, then it doesn't. But I still am very headstrong that I think this is going to be one of the greatest women's fights of all time.
I agree. I think that if this fight plays out,
for this fight. I'm actually more excited for this fight than the men's fight. And honestly, I would prefer that this was the main event.
John has graduated now. I'm gonna give you your honorary graduation cap. John is no longer a casual.
There we go. All right.
Because this is the fight that I am looking forward to the most in this card as well, being someone who's a diehard MMA fan. I feel like this has all the tools to make a great fight. And I know we say this all the time. We said it about Cyril Gane and Aspinall. We said it about Merab and Sandhagen. But you look at what these two girls have done in their respective divisions.
Merab versus Sandhagen was a good fight.
It was.
Was it the greatest of all time? No.
Was it as good as we wanted it to be? No. However, this is one of those fights where you're going to sit back on your couch and you're going to go, yeah, I was doing this and this, watching with this person when this fight went down. So,
yeah,
there's
there's so many. There's a quick sidebar. It's like there's a lot of fights, and that's what makes the sport so entertaining, is those memorable moments. I mean, the room I record in is a converted bedroom. This is the room I sat in. I right there. I remember I wasn't even sitting in a chair. I was sitting in like a step stool that I was sitting on the top of. I remember sitting right there, and I watched Conor McGregor knock out Jose Aldo in 16 seconds. Right. I remember that I was with my two brothers and my dad, and we watched the entire card preparing. We were so pissed that fight only lasted 16 seconds, but we still recognized how great it was. Right. We were sitting right there. Just recently, I'm never going to forget. We're sitting in your basement. We were all certain that Ankalaev was going to beat Pereira for the second time in a row, and we're standing in your basement, screaming at the top of our lungs because Pereira put him down in the first round, right? And that's what's beautiful about the sport. I mean, the sports in general, right? But if you can get those moments, like you said, I remember where I was when this happened. That's what builds the sport. And I think you're right. I think this might be one.
I agree. I remember watching the first UFC event I ever watched was Holman Rousey, and I remember sitting in my chair in my basement with my dad, my uncle, and my brother, and my mom was standing right behind me watching Holly Holm put down Ronda Rousey. And I remember my uncle being so pissed off that he spent $180 on the pay-per-view for the fight to only go a round and a half. That is one thing that I remember.
All right. Good times. Let's move on to the welterweight title bout. Islam Makhachev moving up a weight class. going for a legacy fight. He wants 2 belts. He wants to cement that to him. The Nurmagomedov and Makhachev family tree is well known if you're a UFC fan. Even if you're a casual, you still kind of know what's going on. Versus the champion, Jack Della Maddalena. Is this his second title defense?
Uno.
First? Second?
Uno.
No.
No, it's his first.
You're right. No, you're right. You're correct. Has to fight, takes the belt from Bilal Muhammad, and then immediately afterwards has to fight Islam Makhachev. I don't know what Jack Della Maddalena did to Dana White and the promoters at UFC, but they must fucking hate this guy.
No, he said, well, I don't think you can hate the guy when he said, I want Islam. After he got the belt, he called out Islam. So, I mean, he kind of did it to himself, number one.
I guess that's completely fair. But that's what we have here in a welterweight bout. Right now, odds have Islam Makhachev as the favorites, a minus 285 to a Jack Della Maddalena plus 230. I think those odds are actually crazy. I think a lot of people, Drew, I know you and I are split on this fight, but you and I both recognize that this is going to be a closer fight than what the odds say.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more that this fight is closer than it may seem. However, let me break this down for you. In my opinion, this is where Islam should have been fighting at his whole career. Cutting that extra 15 pounds to make 155 makes no sense when you're almost 200 pounds outside of camp. He is huge. He was huge at 155, and now that he doesn't have to cut that extra 15 pounds, I feel like we're going to see a superhuman version of Islam that has never looked better. The size difference is not as big as people are making it seem. I think they're going to weigh about the same when they get in that octagon, probably about 185, 195, give or take. JDM has 1 inch of height on him and 2.5 inches of reach, and their legs are the exact same length. I feel like Islam, there's a reason why he has tied Kamaru Usman's 15-fight win streak, and with a win will tie Anderson Silva's unbreakable record. I feel like the coach that he has in Khabib and his late coach Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who was Khabib's father, have set this kid up for an incredible UFC reign. It is extremely hard to ever pick against Islam, and I don't think I can do it. Does JDM have a chance to knock him out? Absolutely. If this fight doesn't go to the ground, JDM is going to win a decision. There is no doubt in my mind that JDM has the cardio to go 5 rounds with Islam, because we watched him go 5 rounds with Bilal. However, you're talking about the greatest lightweight ever that should have been a welterweight his whole career. You make it's incredibly hard to pick against Islam in this fight. You're talking about the guy who submitted Prime Oliveira, did not only beat Oliveira, but beat Oliveira in the way that Oliveira is supposed to beat people. If that doesn't put everybody on notice, I don't know what does. It'd be like beating Michael Jordan in a free throw contest. You know, it's just one of those things. It's almost like a where you fight. And sure, people say, oh, he lost to Volk in that first fight. Okay, it was in Australia. The crowd plays a huge role. And then he beat Volk on short notice. Absolutely pieced up Poirier, went 5 rounds with him. And then submitted Renato Moicano, who isn't a bum, in the first round via Darce. I mean, you talk about what this guy's done. There's no reason why he's not the greatest lightweight of all time.
I'm taking JDM, and here's why. You actually listed the reasons I'm taking Jack Della Maddalena. Just I'm looking at it in an opposite sense. You talk about the weight cutting, right? You said it yourself. He should be fighting at this 200 at 200.
Or at 170. My bad.
Right? 170.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about it. He shouldn't be cutting that extra. This is where he lives at, right? He shouldn't be cutting that extra 15 pounds and going down. Now, my opinion is that the reason he has looked so dominant and he has beaten Oliveira in a way he shouldn't have been beaten, and he, stripped Volk of the belt and dominated him and pick, Dustin Poirier, whatever other guy, you want to talk about. I think the reason he's done that is because he has been weight cutting to 15 pounds, and then he is a welterweight. He has always been a welterweight. He just cuts enough to go down a division and just absolutely outsize everybody. So now you're at a situation where you're fighting a guy who is the same weight as you, or potentially weighs more than you do, because who knows how much Jack has cut for this fight. I mean, or how much he cuts, or what his method is. If I had to assume, he probably stays around fighting weight a majority of the time and then cuts just the body fat off.
Let me interject a little bit.
Normal thing. Yeah.
I think that JDM on fight day will probably be somewhere in the 182 to 187 range. I don't think he cuts a ton of weight, but he does cut a significant amount of weight where it's not just 1 or 2 pounds. It's more than that.
So exactly. So my point being is Islam has never faced anyone at this weight before. And so I kind of question, is his wrestling and grappling ability going to translate to this weight class? I don't know if it does. You talk about the Bilal fight. Bilal is a wrestler. Now watch every fight he's ever faced, ever had, and then watch the Madalena fight. It doesn't go that way because Madalena has really good defense. His coach has instilled in him a significantly powerful grappling and wrestling defense. And also, I think his wrestling is incredibly underrated. He's got Volk. He said it himself. He says, I'm doing it for Volk. I'm getting one back for Volk. Volk knows what Islam's capable of. We've all seen it twice, right? And so I think he's just got a lot of weapons. He's got a lot of things in his bag and opportunities available to him because of this fight and because of his history and his camp. I think he takes this one away. He's just got, I don't know how to explain it. He's just got that attitude of just like, I'm not gonna, I
won't back down.
I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be, Magomed Ankalaev. I'm not gonna, have the belt and then defend and then lose it immediately, right? This is a situation, and also I think this is really big. This fight, and we talk about it in a more reasonable sense, this is a really big fight for Jack Della Maddalena, because if he defends this belt and then Islam goes and does whatever, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm looking at the rankings right now. I'm looking at 1 through 15. Jack Della Maddalena runs through this entire welterweight division right now.
I wouldn't say he runs through the entire division. There's a couple guys that I think would give him.
No, I think he does.
A little bit. I think that Ian Gary might give him a little bit of trouble. I think that Sean Brady would definitely give him a little bit of trouble just because of how dominant Brady is. But like you said, if Jack Della Maddalena beats Islam, he could go on a tear. And I agree with that. However, there's one thing I want to say about the weight cutting is that Islam is always used to cutting that extra 15 pounds and still being so damn good and going through an absolute grueling weight cut, and you see how dominant he really is. I think there's be a huge difference in when he only has to cut like 10 pounds as opposed to 25 pounds. That extra 15 pounds is so much more than it seems like, oh, it's just 15 pounds. Okay. People you've lifted those. For the audience watching, go pick up a sandbag that's 50 pounds and imagine cutting a quarter of that in 2.5 days by just sweating to death in a sauna. I don't think any of you would be able to do what he does. And then still go out and be able to comment. Yeah, it would kill a lot of people cutting that much water weight in general. However, I feel like when Islam goes into this fight with that strength, that I feel like it's going to be an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, and I think this is going to be a great fight. I mean, you talk about guys that are just dominant. Islam Makhachev is the one that comes to mind. He's already solidified himself. He's a Khabib with better striking, and we all saw how good Khabib was. Even in his last few fights, he was still amazing.
I've heard a lot of talks that if Islam wins this fight, that he might have to be considered the GOAT in some circles. He might have to be in that Mount Rushmore conversation.
I put him at 4 if he wins this fight.
I understand. I completely understand. Right. I will say this though. I mean, we've made a decision. You're taking Islam. I'm taking Jack. The best thing about this card, and I think this is what the beauty is, and we've had this problem the last couple times, I am not emotionally invested in anyone in this card.
I am in a few guys, but it's not as big as I've been in before.
Tracy Cortez, I'm emotionally invested in that fight.
All right, John, you're back to a casual. You give me back your graduation hat.
No, I gained it and lost it in one episode.
Only took about 10 minutes.
I was a non-casual for 10 minutes. It felt really good. It went to my head immediately. But no, I think this is just going to be an excellent card. I'm just looking forward to every single fight. I'm not going to be displeased or with anyone who wins these fights. I think this is just going to be, again, I think this is one of the best cards I've ever put together.
I can agree with you that this is easily going to be card of the year. I think that I think that 323 might give it a run for its money, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah. Speaking of another story for another time, let's go into our final round real quick. The part of our show where we talk about, I give Drew a question that he has been unsolicited, but he kind of already knows what I'm talking about. I try to keep these things topical and up with current events. In case you live under a fucking rock, the UFC is currently under investigation by the FBI, as well as every other major sports league right now is under investigation by the FBI for gambling. It's becoming an epidemic. It's becoming a problem. And right now, the problems are coming in faster than the solutions. But let's go back. The whole thing for the UFC investigation started with Las Vegas 100, the rear naked choke, that fight. And then, rumors come out that there's 100 fights being looked at. That's actually been shut down. Herzog is being investigated for fights, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of, they haven't given us much, right? Which has led the public to speculate on things, what's happening. So, Drew, my question to you, your final round question is, how deep does this rabbit hole go with the gambling problems in the UFC?
I'm going to be 100% honest with you, John. I feel like that I'm not trying to smack talk Dana or the UFC, but I feel like there's a lot of suspect things that have happened in the UFC that just kind of get swept under the rug. Like we look at Norma Dumont a couple weeks back. She didn't win that fight, but she got the split decision because she does more for the sport than Ketlin Vieira does. Even Derek Lewis, the stop with Kalish and Teixeira that was officiated by Herzog, that was suspect. I watched it over a few times. It was early. He should have taken a point from Teixeira, given Lewis top position. There's a lot of sus moments that don't make sense in the UFC. However, let me go a little bit on the other side. There's a lot of fights that should have played out different that, if go the other way, the UFC benefits far more than not. Like if you think about the popularity of Alexa Grasso, we look at Shevchenko Grasso 2, where Valentina suspiciously some judge scored at 10-8 for Valentina in the last round, and Grasso held the belt via a draw. That seems a little bit suspect. And some guys that shouldn't have won fights did, like I don't know why Volkov didn't win the fight against Cyril Gane. I don't know if they were trying to set up a Tom Aspinall-Gane fight because Tom Aspinall already set off.
Fight? Volkov's last fight in the last card.
I don't know if
he won that.
He didn't. And the thing is, it's like were they almost just saying, "Oh, Volkov's going to get a split decision win because we screwed on a split decision against Cyril Gane"? I don't know what the hindsight is. You two wrongs don't make a right. So one guy gets screwed, so you screw over that guy's next opponent. So that guy, a lot of stuff does not make sense. However, Mackenzie Dern holding the belt, she's a fan favorite instead of Verna. That does more for the UFC than if Verna would have held the belt. In my opinion, I think you could have almost given that fight to Verna. Almost. I didn't say Verna won. I said almost. You could have almost given it to Verna. However, now it sets up a Dern and Tatiana match that people are going to want to see because it's two very popular fan favorite fighters. I feel like the gambling can't run as deep as we think it does, just because of all the times where the UFC could have had this person win a fight and it would have done so much more. Like if John Jones would have lost the belt to Dominic Reyes, sport would have been flipped on its ass.
So really, let me pause you there. Are you saying that the gambling doesn't run that deep, but the fight fixing does?
I'm saying the other way. I'm saying I don't think fight fixing runs deep. I feel like the gambling, there's a lot of suspect lines in the gambling, but I don't think fights are being fixed because the UFC could make so much more money if they were fixing their own fights. Because no offense to some of the guys that hold the belt, but the UFC did not want to see Bilal as champ. That did nothing for the division. Nobody wanted to see Ankalaev be champ because that did nothing for the division because Pereira got his belt back. I mean, it doesn't do anything for the division. For Poatan losing the belt hurt the division. Adesanya losing the belt hurt the division. So you're talking about fight fixing? I just don't see it.
Here's my take. I've talked about this. Now, other sports, the NBA is going through a massive investigation right now. The NFL announced today that they're going to crack down on gambling with players, which means they obviously know it's happening and they know the FBI is coming. You don't really get a lot of attention on the NHL because honestly, who cares? The thing about fighting, boxing, whatever, UFC, boxing, jiu-jitsu, whatever. The thing about it, the beauty of the sport is that anybody can literally beat anybody.
I agree with you on that one.
That is Now that's in all sports, but in fighting, it's one man versus another. And so you get those situations. You get those situations where the unranked opponent, beats the number 3 guy on a short notice fight, and just blows him out. We love that as fans. And so you get those situations a lot. And so it's hard to track the gambling on that because that's just the nature of the sport. Some guys just get beat, and you can see it very clearly. I mean, listen, there's times where you can see fights and the guy who's favored just gets destroyed. I can, if you want me to, I can list off. You and me can list off fights for the next 3 hours on situations that's occurred. But there's situations where it's obvious that the guy got beat. But I think what you're talking about and what I think a lot of people are referencing to is there's situations where there's no way on planet Earth that a certain person lost to another. And I'm talking within the last 3 years, it's when it's become an epidemic. It's just that's when it's just getting shady. And also just nowadays, man, I hate to be the one to say this, but fighters just do not have the same mentality that they did 10 plus years ago, right? There's back in the day, it was just yep, I'm going to get in this ring and I'm going to fucking kill this guy. I fucking hate him. I don't like this person at all. Man, you look at the Diaz brothers, you look at McGregor, you look at them. I mean, we're talking about it. You look at, Khabib versus McGregor. That had nothing to do with money. That was just 2 guys who fucking hated each other and they wanted to kill each other. Nowadays, it's kind of all about the money. It's just you got John Jones coming out here and saying, I'm only interested in super fights where I get FU money, and then they give him FU money, and then he retires. And then you got Ngannou moving over to boxing because they're paying him more. You got Aspinall's dad threatening to go to boxing because they pay him more. It's all just money, 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 money. And then you're introducing this gambling subject, and it's okay, well, we have a bunch of guys talking about how they want money, and then we have this gambling thing involved. There's really no reason not to be suspicious.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that one. But let me say a little bit about the gambling thing. Is it's like there's one thing I do not agree with. It's like all these fighters coming out and saying, Dana, I was offered money to throw fights. I'm gonna pull a Last Dance quote where they ask about the thing with George suspension. I think that is total bullshit. There is no way that Vanessa Demopoulos, who was one of the ones said she got offered money to fix fights, was offered money to fix fights. You're a plus 600 underdog, and they say, we want you to go out there and lose. And she got her ass kicked. She was going to get her ass kicked anyways.
That is one of two things. That's one of two things. Number one, a guilty conscience, a.k.a. you did that shit and you're trying to cover up. Or that's you just, trying to get attention and get in the UFC's good graces. And then they'll be like, this person doesn't gamble, so we got to give them fights now. But let me tell you something. I almost guarantee you, though, there's definitely people throwing fights. I
can agree with you that. I feel
100% happening.
At the level in the UFC, no, I'm not trying to, go argue with you back and forth. I just, or be ignorant. I just don't see it. There is so much other stuff that could have played out a different way, where the UFC benefits 1,000 times more than they did. I just cannot in my right mind see where those fights are. I mean, there's probably buried on some bullshit prelim on an Apex card.
I think that's where
I just don't see it.
I think a lot of people are expecting to be like, fucking, Sean O'Malley got subbed twice by fucking Merab. Oh my God, he had to have thrown that fight. They look at the big fights, but I don't think, people don't understand. There's 15 fights in a card, right?
And there's 46 cards a year? Roughly 500 fights?
I think a lot of the investigation is focused on the early prelims, fight night stuff, contender series. I think that's where a majority of the investigation is going towards.
I agree.
That's my opinion. I don't think there's these major fights, these main cards. I don't think they're the ones being looked at.
I completely agree with you. I feel like I'm the first thing I said when I heard it was, hey, if you're going to fix a fight, do it on an early prelim when you think nobody's watching. That's where you're going to try to, when you think nobody's watching, is I cannot tell you how many sets of eyeballs are on the lines and how many people are on the lines and looking at all these fights and all the props. You'd have to be an idiot to try to fix one of these fights because of the amount of money these guys are going to be getting paid for this fight. It doesn't make sense to throw the fight. I'm going to go offer Islam $3 million to throw this fight. That wouldn't make sense because these Dagestani guys don't care about money. You know what I mean? It's like you get to a certain point where where you have stand-up guys like JDM and Val and Islam.
Belt.
Want Islam? Islam doesn't give a shit about money anymore. He said, "I don't care about money. I'm fighting for legacy." And that's why I feel like this is that big of a moment. It's because these two title fights, I'm pretty sure these.
And we're going to have to wait and see. UFC 322 comes out this Saturday, November 15th, live from Madison Square Garden in New York City. And we'd like to thank you oh so very much for watching. Make sure you go check out Drew's card page on Instagram. Drew J, is it 14?
Yes, JAY 14.
Go check it out. I'm John Massey. That's Drew the Rooster Johnson. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the fight wherever it is you're watching, even though we know where you're watching.
Yes, we do.